Hey guys, welcome. Alex here, sort of descending into ape man status. Thought it'd be a good topic to talk about how our search for novelty is interfering with our everyday happiness. And I know that happiness is a bit of a non-word, doesn't really mean anything, but I thought it'd be helpful to use as a label to help point us in the direction of what I mean. Perhaps the word fulfilment is a better word. But how could it be that our search for new experiences, novel projects and plans and things to do could be interfering with our happiness, with our general everyday sense of fulfillment? Now, as I'll discuss a bit later, there are lots of good things to novelty. I think it's good to seek out new adventures and new experiences. I think it's good to keep your eyes not only on what's going on in front of you, but also to, at the same time, keep an eye on the horizon and see what's out there in terms of opportunities and new tastes and experiences and things to look out for as well. So it's about finding the nuance here, finding the balance. But I thought it was an interesting thing to contribute regardless. How our search for novelty could interfere with our happiness. And the reason I say that is because when I think of happiness, and I have thought on happiness, the topic of happiness, the concept of happiness for many years, trying to figure out, how do we be happy? What's the real secret to fulfillment? And the thing that tends to come up over and over again for me, and you might see other people talking about needing to contribute, you might see people talking about personal growth, you might see people talking about family, you might see people talking about working on projects that excite you. For me, the thing that tends to rise to the top when it comes to defining happiness and defining some direction that points us towards what we need to do to maintain a sense of fulfillment, sense of joy. For me, it's usefulness. Being useful to others and other beings in the world and finding a way to be useful in your own way. I find that tends to be a great simplifier of the complexity that can arise around trying to figure happiness out. It's like, well, what do I do with my life? How do I market myself? What's the branding I need to do? How do I do this and that? Well, if you just focus on the one thing, how do I make myself useful to other people? Maybe it's delivering entertaining videos. Maybe it's developing a skill like plumbing that other people want you for. There's a lot of fulfillment in that because you have a reason to engage in a process that is meaningful in the sense that you are being useful. You are contributing use. This is why the idea of simply contributing might not be enough for happiness, because you might sit there in a meeting and contribute, but are you really truly happy? You might be contributing noise. You might be adding more noise to the meeting, and in so doing, not really providing much use to the world. And so I think that's a nice, strong driver of having a sense of purpose is figuring out how you can be useful to other people and other beings and the environment as well, I suppose, as well. You can find your own way of doing that, then you have figured out happiness. So this takes us then back to the novelty question. I see a lot of people feeling discomfort and wanting to escape and seeing the salvation in novelty and equating that with a kind of happiness, kind of shallow happiness, you could say. Like, I want to keep traveling, I want to keep doing this, I want to keep experiencing new things. And I think it's good, as I said, and I'll explain in a minute what I mean by that in more depth. But I think novelty is potentially dangerous as well, because what does novelty do? It keeps you looking out. If you haven't got the balance right, you're constantly looking for that new shiny object, that new potential project, that new place you could move to, that new relationship. It takes you away from being able to put time and attention on any one thing. And this is the secret to usefulness. If you want to be useful, the two key ingredients are time and attention. And what does novelty do? What does your search for novelty do? It takes you away from that. It doesn't give you... it takes away time and attention from any one thing, because if you're constantly looking for new experiences, constantly looking for new things that you can define yourself as, you're never going to be able to adequately pump enough time and energy into any one thing. If you look around at some of the best authors in the world, some of the best teachers, some of the best course creators, some of the best content creators, they have spent It's always the same story. They have spent a considerable amount of time and attention, and therefore energy as well, on any one thing, getting really good at something, and being there through the power of attrition, the power of consistency. And in so doing, they have elevated themselves above most people, not only because of the consistency, but because of the unique flavor they bring to whatever it is. And you're creating this very powerful hybrid product or service or creation or influence in the world that is felt as very useful to other people. And this is where that happiness, that long-term happiness, is going to come from, I think, for many anyway. Maybe you figured out a different way to do it, but usefulness, that's a pretty sure shot way to remain happy. If you can figure out a way to continually remain useful, you'll be continually happy. So this is why you've got to be careful for that novelty thing, because novelty can, at first glance, look like happiness. It can look like a source of happiness. So I'm going to go to India motorcycling in a couple of months. That could be what I interpret as, well, look, if I want to live a happy life, I need to keep chasing novelty. But actually what you're doing is you're detracting from your ability to be useful. So if I was to coach myself on how to remain happy, I'd say, look, you don't necessarily need to go traveling. You can do that, but I would focus and don't forget the importance of developing this key skill that you've got going on here, which is, in my case, self-help writing. Really is kind of the core element in what I do, helping people become more creative and using my writing as a skill to do that. And that's something that I've developed over years and years. 15 years of pretty much daily writing to really hone that craft, and hone the craft of writing, but also hone the content within that craft. So I also spoke earlier about how there is something to the novelty chasing, which is that it depends where you're coming from, right? So if you're maintaining the view that developing your usefulness is important, it might well be that having unique experiences, novel experiences, could add value to whatever it is that you're building usefulness in. So as long as you're coming from the point of view of, I need to continue accumulating usefulness, then it might well be that going for a trip and doing that to refresh the mind could be good, because it feeds directly back into your ability to stay useful. But if you're chasing novelty and it's detracting from your ability to be useful, and you're continually losing time and attention, and you're continually draining time, attention and energy from your projects and yourself through all of this chasing, you're going to be left unfulfilled. And I think a lot of people are very unhappy in the modern age because they're prioritizing novel experiences over the usefulness stuff, as opposed to bringing them together, allowing them to feed into one another, but primarily focusing on the usefulness aspect. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. Might have been a bit rambly today, but I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments below what you're working on as your usefulness thing. I'd be curious to know. I'm also curious to hear about new ideas for new things that I can chat about. If you haven't yet followed me on my newsletter at untetheredmind.substack.com, link is in the comments below. Well worth it. My ideas are in there in written form, and you might very well find a lot of value there. As always, subscribe, like, share this with your friends, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.